We begin here in Berlin, where Ukrainian leaders are pushing for immediate help to fund the rebuilding of critical infrastructure as winter nears. President Volodymyr Zelensky urging attendees via video conference for $17 billion in fast recovery funding to help with housing and with the energy grid in particular. Recent Russian attacks have targeted Ukraine's electricity network. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, meanwhile, has called the broader rebuilding of Ukraine a challenge for generations, and he's appealed to nations for further commitments. The World Bank estimated back in September that total rebuilding costs for Ukraine could mount to more than $350 billion. Now, before talking to EU leaders, Scholz also appealed to German businesses for help.
Russia's daily bombardments of Ukraine are leaving housing, roads, railways, and power plants in ruins. An end is not in sight. But the German government is already preparing efforts to help rebuild Ukraine. With winter approaching, Ukrainians need electricity, heating, and water. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is hoping to attract investors with the prospect of EU membership for Ukraine. This decision sends a signal to private investors. Those who invest now in the reconstruction of Ukraine are also investing in a future EU member that will be part of our legal community and our internal market. Some 2,000 German companies are already active in Ukraine, and despite the war, most have remained there. That number is likely to grow, with many helping to rebuild the country.
The most what is needed to reconstruct quickly and efficient Ukrainian energetic system, and especially in the field of decentralization of supplyment, because they targeting this huge former Soviet Union electricity station, and it's very simple to shut down large cities, for example, Kyiv or Lviv or Kharkiv for the electricity.
The head of a large logistics company based in the city of Dnipro is eager to find some investors.
It's a good time to invest to road or truck solutions for transportation something to Ukraine. I would also notice warehousing. As long as we have different gauge width between European community and Ukrainian railway infrastructure, it is very good time for investing to dry ports on the border between European community and Ukraine for this moment.
A lot will have to be done to rebuild Ukraine, and it could take decades. But the infrastructure is likely to be better than before. The war is far from over, but reconstruction efforts are already beginning.
And for more on this, I'm joined now by Ukraine's Deputy Energy Minister, Yaroslav Timchenkov. Yaroslav, welcome to the show. You tweeted a week ago, at the height of these latest Russian attacks against the energy infrastructure, you tweeted, "Never before have so many people and their survival depended on having electricity supply." How is the situation right now?
First of all, it is important to understand this is the first time in human history that a large European country like Ukraine experienced such massive missile and drone attacks on its critical energy infrastructure. Never before have energy networks been so advanced and extensive. Never before have so many missiles been fired simultaneously as in Ukraine. And never before have so many people and their survival dependent on having electricity supply. That's why right now we are appealing to our partners across the globe to help us stay functioning and repair these damages.
These
For
17
that, we need
this $17 billion that you're requesting right now, that Zelensky is requesting for immediate help. Can you tell us where it would go? Are we talking about hospitals? Are we talking about substations? Give us an idea.
Yeah, you know, we need dozens of transformers, hundreds of kilometers of cable and other equipment and suppliers. That is why we securing this assistance in number one priority today, as well as strengthening Ukraine's air defense. We must protect critical energy assets and civilian infrastructure, especially electricity. Russian actions are war crimes. That's why after our victory we will demand that not only the military, but also those who assist identify our energy targets, Russian power engineers are brought to justify. This is the situation quite critical. Only on the 10th of October, almost 7.5 million people lost access to electricity due to Russian missile attack. And this October 10th is repeating again and again. Because of the missile terror, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians are cut off from electricity right now at this moment in many parts of our country. And this is really very difficult. Don't have access to electricity because it's quite cold weather, and people should protect themselves. They should have hot food, hot water, and electricity supply. This is very important.
Given the current damage and what we've seen right now, and obviously Russia still appears to be ready to attack much of this infrastructure, but given the current damage, can we expect to bring many of these critical systems back online before the real cold weather sets in? How does it look?
You know that more than 30% of critical energy, civilian energy infrastructure were affected. You should understand that the biggest in Europe, Ukrainian Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, occupied by Russians. Because of that, we lost more than 20% of nuclear part of electricity generation. For example, 90% of wind generation but that have good evidence confirming that Ukraine's energy sector has a great potential. The fact that even now, in this tough period of time, with all this massive attack of Russians on our energy infrastructure, we managed to maintain the resilience of our grids and continue supplying electricity, water and gas to consumers with minimal control blackouts. We have blackouts, but these blackouts controlled by our transmission system operator, and this is because of necessary to have time to do repair campaigns. But this is really, we should understand that Russians intend to make cold weather the accomplice in genocide of Ukrainians. And the survival of Ukrainian cities is under threat. This is really very difficult situation.
And we'll have to leave it there for now. Yaroslav Demchenkov, that's Ukraine's deputy energy minister, talking about the difficult situation there, facing critical energy infrastructure as winter approaches in Ukraine. We thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Let's take you now to Solomia Bobrovska in Ukraine's port city of Odessa. She's a member of the country's parliament, where she also serves as secretary of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you so much for joining DW. Does it make sense to talk about the reconstruction of Ukraine now while bombs and drones are still falling?
For sure. And we had to talk about this since the very start of invasion. You saw the results of the bombing and shouting and hitting the critical infrastructure, and how civilians are after the invasion, especially in Kyiv region, Chernihiv, in Sumy, in Zhytomyr. And I think that we have to live not with the past, but with the future, knowing that we will win. But that's of course that's the question of when we will overcome this this threat, and this existential threat, I would say. And for us, that's a real big pleasure. That's very symbolic. Today, the conference takes place in Berlin, and for the first time, the president of Germany came to Ukraine. Finally, he is our dear guest in Ukraine, and I think that would be a good sign of a new page in very close and friendly, and I would say warm cooperation finally between Germany and Ukraine.
And what sort of input is Kyiv having into these talks, into this process?
I think that first of all, Kyiv will show the real war. What does it mean, real war for Germany? We understand that it's very psychological hard for Germans to overcome the consequences after the Second World War. And I think that's a high time for a president of the country which is trying to make a step back or somewhere behind from the war, to understand that we have actually facing the Third World War, and that's not even about buffer zone. We are a shield.
No, I understand
what does it mean
that.
to be the shield of the 21st century?
If I could just perhaps rephrase the question. There were concerns before the war started, when there were discussions with Russia about the war, that excluded Ukraine. Now we have a conference where lots of countries around the world are talking about what happens next in Ukraine. How much a part of that process is Ukraine? Are these people talking about your future, or are you part of the conversation?
No, we are part of the conversation. I think that's the formula. To talk about Ukraine without Ukraine, that's totally going against any politics and policies which can be made by EU or NATO members or our partners without Ukraine. We have our vision of the future of Ukraine. That's first of all, and I think that's appropriate not to ask Ukraine how we see this future. And we see this future actually to be a 100% member of EU. And by the way, now it's the talkings and conversations are in Berlin during this conference. That's about future of Ukraine, but
Understood.
Future of Ukraine being a member of Europe.
OK. There are signs, however, that the fallout from this war, higher food prices, higher energy prices, are beginning to test the resolve of Ukraine's allies. On Monday, we saw 30 members of the US Democratic Party urge the president to shift his strategy and pursue direct negotiations with Russia. How concerned are you about the effect of war fatigue on your allies?
We're concerned, but you know, it's really a very tough question and a very sensitive question. If for me, as being Ukraine and being a member of parliament, to see our partners being tired of Ukrainian issue, and we are trying to say that the price for electricity or energy price, that's only a very small part of how much the European civilian comfortable life paying for the war, where we're losing millions of lives. Each day we're losing more than 100 military officers on the front line. We're losing civilians, and the murders which are being done and was done and will be done by Russia. That's incredible and going out of any books even and memories. And I think that's this is very small payment for war. We have to face how much we can go to pay for our values.
Right.
Saying again and again the freedom is so high and so important for us. No, I think that's the age or the period of our transforming not only Ukrainians but for Europeans as well.
Understood.
What does it mean to have freedom with a high price?
Thank you so much for joining us and sparing us the time. Solomia Bobrovska, Secretary of the Ukrainian Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you.
Thank you.